Well, sales is the lifeblood of all companies, but too many managers are not putting enough emphasis on training their sales staff. That's coming up next on The Jeff Crilley Show.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is The Jeff Crilley Show.
One of the most important roles in any company is the sales department. The problem is a lot of the boomer bosses who might know how to actually sell something, they're not teaching that to the next generation of salespeople. Joining us to talk about that, Steve A. Klein. He's a best-selling author and speaker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Well, I have to make note of something. It's not often that I invite a guest on whose voice is so much better than mine that I'm envious. And I'm envious. You got that voice of God.
Well, I don't know if it's better than yours, but it's a little bit different. Thank you for that.
Now, you, in your early days, you had an opportunity in radio, and I think that turned into a sales position. Is that right?
Absolutely. A real quick story. I was hired as a one-man news staff in a little small station in Nebraska, an AM station back then, for a total of $500 a month, working 18-hour days. Though the GM wasn't quite sure I was going to make it, and after 6 weeks, he took me out to coffee and fired me. Fortunately, he had just hired a salesperson who had a background in news, so we traded jobs. And that was the end of my news career and the beginning of my sales career.
Yes. You told me something a while back that just a small percentage of salespeople ever have any formal training or have read a sales book. Is that correct?
Very similar to myself. When I started my sales career, he had me come back after lunch after he fired me. He took me out to coffee. And he said, come back after lunch and I'll give you what you need to sell. What I thought I heard him say was, come back and I will train you in selling. He handed me a rate card and a list of clients. He said, go on and sell. So it was all training on my own. And I found that many salespeople are like that. They really have not had formal training teaching them what they need to do to be successful.
Yes, and you've got a best-selling book. Let's put the cover up so everybody can see it. It's called Sell When You See the Whites of Their Eyes. I love that title. When did you first publish that book?
That was published about 15 years ago.
And you just keep reprinting it because it's so popular. It never goes out of style. The words in that book are probably more relevant today than they were when you wrote them.
A couple of things are different now compared to the way it was 15 years ago. But the book is about 2 areas. Number one is about developing relationships. And that's the most important thing that a salesperson could do. The second part of it is on activity. You need to have a lot of activity, seeing and speaking to a lot of people. Both those together helps make a better salesperson.
So in a situation like this, we've got a pandemic, we've got an economy that's going down. The sales at any particular company may not be as good as they could be because of the economy, but it also could be their salespeople. They're not following up on leads, they're not closing leads. Let's talk about that.
I'll guarantee you that with everything I've been reading about the economy and the pandemic and everything else going on, many salespeople are giving up. I do a keynote talk on being relentless, developing relentless performance. Within that, it's all about doing what you have to do to be successful. There is business out there. I don't care how bad the economy is, there's business out there. Yes, you may have to work a little harder. You may need to get a lot more referrals, but there is business. So it's understanding what you have to do differently for the new normal to be successful in sales.
You've got a speaker reel that we want to roll a little bit of that because I know when we're not hunkering down and we're not social distancing, you're a very much sought after speaker. What kind of audiences do you like to speak to?
any audience that will respond back, the larger the better. It's to me, it's fun getting in front of a live audience. The problem I've had right now is the lack of live audiences I can get in front of, so I'm doing a lot more virtually right now. But the type of audience, it really doesn't matter. It's audiences that want to be better, want to achieve more.
Yes, and I've seen some of the reviews on your website, engaging, funny, always giving great takeaways. Have you always been a performer? Where did that part of you come from?
No, one of the stories I tell within my keynote is about how poor my self-image was for a long time. It was so bad during high school, I remember that I could not look somebody in the eye. I had to look down at the floor when I moved between classes. And a friend of mine got me into radio back in high school. I also had a chance to sing, and had a very small solo within that. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, there's a lot of power you have when you're in front of people. I started working through that, so it took me a long time to change, and there's still a little bit of that, of bad stuff that's still there, but I love getting in front of people. The most power I can get is getting in front of a group that's responding. That's a lot of fun.
Yes. Now, you don't just train on sales, you also train on leadership. So let's talk a little bit about that.
There is a lack of leadership within the world right now. We can see this now with the pandemic that's happening, but leaders are not taught, just like salespeople aren't taught. Within school, we're not taught any leadership, and actually there's not just one or two leaders in a company. Everybody that works for a company is a leader.
Yes.
Once somebody understands what leadership is really about, which is helping develop people, the company becomes better.
So let's talk a little bit about the idea that, you might be a hotshot salesperson, and so that you become the leader of a sales team. But nobody taught you how to lead. You're still a great salesperson. You're just a bad leader.
That's correct. Sometimes when you take that top salesperson and make them the sales manager, you've ruined your best salesperson. Leading is about helping other people, understanding what has to happen, developing a vision for the company that everybody can buy into. And once they have that vision, they start coming up with ideas, ways to make it happen more effectively. It's also not telling people what to do, it's asking a lot more questions, finding out what they want to do, helping them make their own decisions, helping them find a way to make it happen, and guiding them along the way.
And these days we've got millennials, we've got Gen Z. When I was coming up, you had bosses that were, it's my way or the highway. Well, that doesn't really play that well with young employees, does it?
Oh, no, it doesn't. Matter of fact, with a number of specifically millennials that will trade jobs, that's why it's happening. Because they don't want to work for somebody that has their thumb on them the entire time. A great manager finds out what people want and helps them find a way to get it. That's very similar to selling. Because what you're doing is you're selling your employees. You're finding out what they want. And every single one is different. Everyone has capabilities. Everyone has potential. The other thing that managers need to do more often is to get their own training and then also push it down throughout the rest of the organization.
And I'm sure you've trained a lot of young managers, so young managers who are leading employees that might be twice their age.
And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, because when you are doing the right things for your people, when you're finding out what they want, those people will respond. And I don't care if there's an age difference of double either way, you will respond and you'll work for that person and do a great job for the company.
Wow. Steve, you've been a great guest. We are absolutely going to have you back. We're going to put your website up so everybody can get in touch. It's steveaklein.com, the website, and get a hold of him for all your speaking and training needs. Steve, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Jeff.
You, sir. Okay, that's it for now. We'll see you next time.